the Resistance Talk Show. I'm your host, Ricardo Smith, and we are live on Global 99.5 FM. We're sitting here on beautiful Shirley Street and Elizabeth Avenue, sitting over top of the nation, looking over the city. This program is being brought to you today by the King Cone Cigar Lounge, right there in the old Red Hot building, East Street South. Mala Butler Mart on the Blue Hill Road. They've got 22 items on a special list where you can go on down and get those items at the special rate. So make sure, call Mala Butler at 677-6397. Seashells Cafe. They have lunch over there. Make sure you go down and get yourself from a wide range of dishes. Make sure you go over at Seashells. The number is 356-3437. Tropical Gyros also has a list of different tropical and the mainstream gyros for you. So you can go over there at 6015752. Call the chef and tell him that the Resistance sent you. Of course, you've got Sunshine Auto Sales on Abundant Life Road that have all of the car accessories needs that you may have. Go over to the Sunshine Auto Sales there on Abundant Life on Soldier Road. Of course, you've got the Southerners Lounge on Blue Hill Road. Their number is 698-0805, and they've got lunch all day for you. Make sure call them before you go so that they'll have everything prepared for you. The Glory Basketball Jam is coming your way the 8th and 9th of July in Bimini, beautiful Bimini, the battle in Bimini. You don't want to miss it. Make sure you get your basketball team signed up and ready to go. The People's Penny Saving Bank Barbershop right over there in Gibbs Corner and East Street. Perry is the barber on duty now. If you wait until Thursday, of course, Mill will be in the chair. So make sure that you make your plans to go over and get a smart cut and look just like me. 3B's Wholesale and Retail Bar at 5th Street, The Grove, and Ponciana Drive. Make sure you go over there and have a nice cool off. Have some coconut water. And tell them that the Resistance sent you. General Landscaping and Trucking, 825-5389. They take care of all of your landscaping needs, as well as tree trimming. It collects your debris, moving items, all that sort of stuff. All your trucking needs and landscaping needs are at a one-stop shop. So give them a call, 825-5389. And Zulu Media Marketing, we take care of all of your marketing needs. Make sure and give us a call. We're going to have you join in the discussion today, but I'm going to give you those numbers in a little while. Today I am pleased to have as my guest on the Resistance Show a man who needs no introduction. As a matter of fact, he appears regularly in both of our Daily's business section, addressing economic and financial issues important to our country and indeed important to the world. His views are valued and respected in the Bahamas, the Caribbean, and the wider international community. He presently serves as the head of the Economic Development Committee for the Organization of Responsible Government, ORG. He is also the managing consultant at the Next Level Solutions. He is a former senior banking executive. He has served as a bank examiner at the Central Bank. He is a certified public accountant. Ladies and gentlemen, hold on to your seats as we make ready to take a break. But when we get back, you will meet the man of which I speak. You will hear from the man who has the ideas, the man who understands economics and finances. Mr. Hubert Edwards. We'll be back and you'll get your chance to meet Mr. Edwards. Weekly specials featuring 22 store-wide items. Your fresh, unique selections with a butcher on duty. Fresh fruits and vegetables, dry goods, detergents, toiletries, and much more. Come on in and encounter a real Bahamian shopping experience. We're on Blue Road North, Monday through Thursdays, 7:30 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. Friday and Saturday, 7:30 a.m. to 8 p.m. And Sunday, 7:30 a.m. to 2 p.m. We accept food services cards and we ship to the family island. Give us a call at 53-5426. We are your auto superstore for rims, design, Azar, Cupra, Western, Lux, Ford, Cadillac, Dodge, Rockford, Velocity, Smart, All-Terrain, and local franchise cars, homes, and commercial relocation. Attention now, because God first, customer is king. Tell them to Ladies and gentlemen, we are back live here on The Resistance. And as I promised you, the man of the hour, he's here with us. Please welcome our guest, Mr. Hubert Edwards. Mr. Edwards, please say hello to our listeners and hello to the Bahamas.
Yeah, it's certainly a pleasure to be here with you this morning still. Ricardo, I certainly am humbled by the invitation and look forward to having a wonderful conversation as it relates to the economics and the fiscal matters of the Bahamas and really how we can potentially explore solutions for moving forward.
Yes. Mr. Edwards, would you just, as we get so that we can break the ice and those listening, please let's tell us a little about yourself and the organization ORG. Just a little.
As you indicated, I think you introduced me well, more than enough. Hubert Edwards, and I have a really overarching interest in the country doing well. It's not really about whether I'm an economist, because I'm not. It's an area which I'm really interested in. I spent some time studying and discussing and getting involved. And of course, I had the opportunity to be selected as the chair of the ORG, Organization for Responsible Governance Economic Development Committee. And through that organization, we're really looking at how we can work with the government and work with the people of the Bahamas in general to deal with issues around sustainable economic growth, to look at issues of fiscal responsibility, which includes debt management, Fiscal Responsibility Act, the Debt Management Committee, which has been in place, and whatever strategies are going to be emanating from that. We're also looking at issues of workforce development and productivity, because as you would appreciate, we have always said that in the Bahamas there's a skill gap, and there is this issue of overall productivity, whether it's in the wider population or in the public sector itself. And so these are issues that we are focusing on. As it relates to sustainable economic growth, we are looking at areas of agriculture, family island development, of course, taxation and tax reform are big issues. How do we diversify the tourism product so that we can get more of the value to remain locally? Energy reform is a big thing. Anyone who experienced the weekend just now would understand and appreciate what we're talking about. And of course, issues of public procurement, corruption, all of these things, I think, work together to create a platform of how the Organization for Responsible Governance want to engage with the government or any administration and engage with the people for the Bahamas to be a better place.
Well, you've said a lot. You've said a lot, Mr. Edwards, and I'm certain that your views are sought after and your recommendations must be considered.
I'm not sure about the second part.
As we move forward. But, jumping right into our discussion for today, sir, we've been experiencing, should I say, steady growth or growing inflation in our country as food costs soars, fuel costs increases regularly, and just about all of the imports, as we don't produce anything, we're not a producing nation, and so as all of our imports come in, there is now a new increase that we are now bearing. Could you tell us how long do you think we could bear this? We could be looking to bear this kind of thing, and what do you think is happening to cause this to happen to us?
Well, it's an interesting and complex question. Let me start by saying that the Bahamas actually produces a lot. We produce tourism and we sell it. We produce fisheries and we sell it. So I know often we get into this idea of not producing because we are always focused on tangible stuff, right? But tourism is an export. Financial services is an export. That said, as it relates to the inflation, I think we're really at an unfortunate place. Coming off the back of the pandemic, as you know, the Bahamas really took a big hit, lost a lot of revenue because there was no traveling, no tourism, and so on and so forth. And then right as we are now moving out of this situation, we see the war between Ukraine and Russia. And that, I think, Ricardo, represents the biggest level of uncertainty. To what extent is this particular conflict is going to drag on? Because it is, in my mind, a significant driver of how long we are likely to experience this inflationary period. And for a number of reasons. One, Russia is a major supplier of energy, as you're aware. Also, between Russia and the Ukraine, they produce and supply to the world maybe about 32% of the grain that we use.
Yes.
Grain is so ubiquitous. It goes into bread, it goes into so many other products. And consequently, because we are having these major disruption of supply chain, right? Because not only is it difficult now to get wheat and oil, but when they reach them, we understand that a lot of the ports around the Black Sea has been destroyed. How do you move these things, right? There's another aspect which I discovered recently that we don't talk about a lot, is that a lot of the fertilizer or the input for fertilizer actually comes out of that region. Here's where the issue is. So while Russia and Ukraine is but one of about 6 bread baskets of the world, right? The potential output from the other bread baskets, not having this important fertilizer input going forward, holds serious implication for us. So they will be planting, but the yields may be limited. And consequently the cost will drag on. And of course, we cannot ignore the fact that gas and oil is where it is. We're now in the Bahamas trending towards $7 per gallon, and that has a serious effect on pretty much everything. So when this is going to end, I can't say. I don't think you're in a position to say yourself, but the fact that it continues to drag on, and the fact that the Bahamas is such a significant importer of inflation, means that we will have to grapple with this for a while to come.
Again, Mr. Edwards, you Seem to be right on the money as you talk about some things that you hear about the green, you hear about, of course, the energy that Russia, the area, produces. Of course, well, the thing that keeps the energy moving. We talk now about the ports being destroyed and all that sort of stuff. Very interesting. But while we talk about these things and while we are now framing the picture to have a better understanding, outside of that, Dr. Minnis, who is the former prime minister, predicted that there was some headwinds heading this way. Can we say that he was right now that we see what's happening?
Well, the headwinds were generally known at that point in time. When he spoke to that, the extent of the headwinds were unknown, uncertain. And so yes, in retrospect, he was very right on the money. Inflation was a big issue. But I believe, though, in his statement, there were some other underlying matters as it relates to the debt.
Right.
And one of those matters really, I think, has manifested itself in such a way where we see Moody's continue to have the Bahamas as with a negative outlook. Yeah, the ratings for the Bahamas remain at Ba3 based on Moody's last rating. But very importantly, the ability of the country to access new debt is very limited. Our bonds, the bonds which are trading at significant discount, which is not a good thing for the Bahamas. So you would have heard in recent time when the government did that repo agreement with Goldman and Sachs, right? I think it was a 206 million. There was a bit of a celebration, and some persons were dismissing it. It's only 206, but what that signaled for the country was that the government still had access to the market, and that is important because I think at the top of mind is the potential rollover risk that exists within our loan portfolio. What do I mean by that? The loans that are currently held by other individuals, right? We are not currently today in a position to pay them off totally. What we would want to do is to be able to go back to them and say, let's roll them over for another couple of years or so, which is normal, right? The truth is, though, where we are today, the possibility of those persons saying no is higher than it was way back when. Not that it won't happen, but the possibility of them tending towards no is higher, and that's referred to as your rollover risk. So these are some of the underlying issues which I think the former prime minister was speaking to.
Very interesting. But Mr. Edwards, could you tell me, in your view, are we acting prudently as a government in this, so should I say, inflationary period? Generally, are we acting? Let me back that by something.
Okay.
I mean, a lot of people would, again, you talk about expanding a cabinet to 22, to 29, or whatever it is, which is almost the full extent of those elected. You travel all over the world, which I don't understand exactly what you seem to, or what the aim is to accomplish. However, some of this may not be as damaging financially as it has the potential of sending the wrong message to the citizenry. It's not business as usual.
No.
But that is what is the message being sent, I think, to the country as well.
We have to be careful, and I'm always very, very careful in not getting too deeply into the politics, right? But we also need to assess and discuss these things with balance. So a country like the Bahamas needs to interact with other countries.
Yes.
The leaders need to be reaching out and having discussion with international leaders. So let's not discount the value of that.
Mm.
Oftentimes we overstate the cost. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the truth is, if a government cocoons itself and stays away from the international marketplace, stays away from the international networking, the cost may be higher than the amount you actually save. Right? True. You mentioned the cabinet. I would say unequivocally, I think the cabinet could have been smaller. That's my personal view, but it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, that's a decision which has been taken, right? The truth is, the cost of the cabinet is not going to fundamentally change the fortunes of the Bahamas at this point in time. So, the way I discuss these things, I like to get to the fundamental. Oftentimes we say, we have these 10 things to do, right? But we can't do 10. And my question is, how many can you do?
Mm-hmm.
How many have you done?
Mm-hmm.
So if you can only do 2 and you're working hard at those 2, then certainly there is value. But I believe that where the country is today at this point in time, we have a lot of work to do for the future. We have to be focused on the recovery, which is taking place now in a nascent way, so it's not totally crystallized yet. But what is most important, Ricardo, is recognizing that the pressures and the impact that we're facing today, as a result of things that we cannot control, is a function of the things that we could control that we didn't fix in the past. And so the lessons from these crises is, how are we going to position ourselves for the future, because these shocks will come again. We will have inflation, we will have potentially pandemic, we will have wars elsewhere, right? How is the Bahamas learning from these crises? And how willing is the leadership to accept the issues as they are and start to implement the necessary reforms which are going to get us to the place where we are stronger, more robust, more resilient the next time around?
You seem to be hitting all the nails on the head. And that's where it comes back to, are we ready to make the hard decisions? Are we prepared to do what we need to do to move our country forward and to better prepare for these challenges in the future? I'll say this much, that the eyes are on the Bahamas and what we do here and what we do today. And I'll say this much, some of the eyes do not like what they are seeing. And so we want the professionals like yourself and others to be candid, fearless, and to say what needs to be said, because it appears to us as if successive governments fail to have the courage to deal with the issues that will make us better as a nation. Before we get into that, we'll take a break right here. And what we will do also, when we get back, we'll give the numbers so that if anyone wants to jump in, that they can at this point jump in and become a part of the discussion. But we're going to break right now. And after this break, we're going to pick it up right where we left off. Lowest prices in town. No one beats Mile Buckle Mart prices. Weekly specials feature 2 store-wide items. Your fresh meat selections with a butcher on duty. Fresh fruits and vegetables. dry goods, detergents, toiletries, and much more. Come on in and encounter a real Bahamian shopping experience. We're on Lower Road North. Mondays and Thursdays, 7:30 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. Friday and Saturday, 7:30 a.m. to 8 p.m. And Sunday, 7:30 a.m. to 2 p.m. We accept social services cards and we ship to the family islands. Give us a call at 323-5422. We are your auto superstore for rims, Exani, Azaras, Trueform, Weston, Lux, Fuel, Trackline, Tough, Rough Racing, Velocity, Mud, All-Terrain, and low-profile bike, cars, homes, and commercial window tinting. At Sunshine Auto, we put God first and customer is king.
Stand by.
Standing by. Ready?
Yep.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're back live here on The Resistance, here on Global 99.5 FM, overlooking the entire city. We are here in the discussion with Mr. Hubert Edwards, who is ready to take your calls. The numbers are 326-0271 or 326-0282. The numbers again are 326-0271 or 326-0282. Caller, you're live.
Yes, sir. Good morning to you all.
Good morning.
Yes, my question is to the guest that said, our governments are going away, right? Let me make a statement ready. I see that they're going away. What they're going away to do is to sell us to foreign investors. They're going away to attract foreign investors. You see? When I see, and then when they bring the foreign investors, what they do is they give the foreign investors they make deals with the foreign investors where they don't get concessions, you see? No taxations. You understand me? And then they them and their second jobs become the executives of these corporations and the lawyers and the accountants of these foreign investors. And another thing, they refuse to tax themselves, that they have salaries. You see, so them going away to meet these investors in person, that doesn't help us. They refuse to pay the workers a livable wage, right? And at the same time refuse to give them their land. Give the working people land. You see, we have never given the working people land nowhere in the Caribbean. You understand? And what we do is we make them stand in line for very, very limited land and mortgages. That's not good governance. You see, and I feel like their key needs to be, we need progressive leaders in this country. We need progressive leaders in this country. Not consider things like everybody in this country is conservative. I see Aaron Green is the only progressive person in the media. We have scientists, people, doctors, and lawyers and accountants. They come on shows and none of them are progressive, all of them are conservative. Thank you.
Let us give Mr. Edwards a chance to speak to some of the issues that you would have raised.
Well, to begin with, going out and speaking to investors actually benefit the country.
Yes.
There's absolutely no way that this or any other country will grow. If you look at the big countries, the United States, UK, Singapore, they're all out there trying to court investment.
Yes.
The question though, and I think the caller touched on this point, the question though is, once the investment is landed, what type of a value that investment brings for the country?
Yes.
And that value usually revolve around, well, at least what gets discussed is the number of jobs, right?
Right.
But I think there are also other economic considerations which at this point in time in our development needs to be on the table. And this is not new. all administration past and the current administration has spoken about this. We're going to take a very serious look at the concession machinery. How much tax are we giving up, and what it is that we're getting back for that? And so when we get to the place where we start to understand and accept, right, the things which need to be done. We need foreign direct investment, we need local investors, we need to have high investor confidence.
Right.
But at the end of the day, we also need to be in a position to demonstrate that the effort which went in, the asset that we gave up, the concessions that we paid out benefits the country,
Right.
and benefits the average Bahamian in the long run. And that, I think, is part and parcel of the missing formula now, which needs to be looked at. And here is a great opportunity when we have gone through this big crisis and have seen and understand and appreciate all the things which could go wrong, which have gone wrong, where our weaknesses lie. Now is the time, I think, to grapple with that.
And I think that there's no question about it. We have to take a look at the concession machinery, because somewhere along the line there seems to be an imbalance. It seems as if we go and just give it away,
Yeah, there's that sense.
you know, and at the end of the day, you can't just have a job in the deal for the Bahamian public.
Right.
We look for to become owners of the economy, and we can't become owners of the economy if we are just laborers in the field. Getting right back on track, though, the duty of our government, and I don't want to, and I'm talking from a financial perspective now, and we're gonna stay away from the politics side of it,
Right.
because I think that you want to speak to what can be made policy. At the end of the day, it is the duty of any government to protect the most vulnerable of us in our society. First and foremost, and then the duty to protect all of us. What measures should the government be implementing to protect us from falling deeper into an economic abyss? And I'm telling you, I'm asking you because the other day I watched the parliament where both sides were talking about the possibility of the breadbasket items now also getting the tax relief and all that bunch of stuff and whatnot and so on and so forth. But I think there's some other things that we need to be talking about at this time to seek to protect the vulnerable, the most vulnerable among us. Because the fact of the matter is, if some help is not given soon, we're going to begin to have some very, very serious effect.
I would agree with that, and I agree with your thesis that the purpose of government and governance is really to take care of the well-being of the people, all persons. And of course, within that continuum, there are vulnerable populations which need extra special care.
Right.
And it is for the government to respond to that. I did an article not too long ago when the discussion around minimum wage was raging. And the title of it was, it's not just about minimum wage. It's really about how do you structure your policy, your programs and your initiatives to ensure that you put people in a position to break generational cycles, or to prevent persons from falling into the abyss, as you say, where you start to create generational cycles. What do I mean by that? There are individuals out there today who in 2019, were on their way to university. Boom came COVID. That individual, the family, the entire family, obviously they couldn't go off to school, but because of what happened with COVID, persons losing job and so on, that family had to come together and make a decision. So the young lady who was supposed to go off to college, who was going to be the catalyst for changing that family, is no longer a college graduate. and can no longer go. The change that creates is that this family now is going to struggle for maybe another little while, right? We have to be careful that when these crises come upon us, when individuals have changed their circumstances, their purchasing power have significantly gone, we have to get to the place where, as a country, we understand that helping them to become whole or wholer than they are currently is not just for those persons' individual interest, but is in the best interest of the entire country.
Yes.
Because the overall productivity, the overall capacity, the overall levels of education, the extent to which you have people moving out of poverty, increases the productive capacity of the country.
Right.
And when the productive capacity of the country increases, this is what happens. Government now is there's less reliance on government to come up with social payments,
right,
because people are doing well.
Right.
So it's almost either a vicious or a virtuous cycle. We talked earlier about inflation.
Right.
This inflationary period right now is affecting poor people.
Right.
Persons are lamenting that, hey, you should, make the changes to breadbasket items. And the reason they are saying this is, as a result of reducing the VAT to 10% and removing the zero and the exempt, because of the inflation, not just by itself, because of the inflation, these persons are now facing higher costs.
Yes.
How do they manage in that circumstance? Well, the government has made a policy position. And I generally would not disagree with the government in terms of saying, hey, we need to go back and put back those items. The reason I would agree of moving forward with it as is because it turns out, to me, to be very efficient and effective. What the government needs to know now is that to start saying, well, if I am impacting you or I have affected you for a while, because this time is expected to change at some point in time, right? How am I going to support you in the interim? So social payments becomes a necessity. So even at the end of the day, Ricardo, if it is into one hand and you pay out to the next hand, knowing that it's temporary, you cannot allow those persons to suffer. And I believe, I don't believe that any administration wants that to happen. I just think that up to now, the way the conversations have been had, sometimes you get the impression that we're not sensitive enough with the plight of these individuals. I'm sure that that's not the case. What needs to be done is that we have to be a little bit more careful how we have these conversations, how we help people to understand why we are doing what we are doing, and what steps we are going to take to ensure that whatever burden they're facing now is reduced or lessened.
The listening public, the numbers are 326-0271, 326-0282. You are invited to join in this conversation. 326-0271, 326-0282. You're invited to join in this conversation. As you know, we appear to be hitting some very serious points, because here it is. As we speak about the issue of inflation, where's the safety net? The question would be, as we talk about those who are the most vulnerable. Well, the thing is with NIB right now, instead of looking to be a support, NIB is recommending an increase. Let me get it correct. The minister of NIB was saying that there needs to be an increase.
Yeah.
However, the Prime Minister came behind and said that they are looking at that, but he is not going to allow any increase at this time.
At this time, yeah.
And he said that. And so, but there was something that the minister was talking about. But when we look at these things, when we talk about how we are going to, you were talking about for a period to be able to lend some assistance through different programs that we may have, the social service, so on and so forth. But shouldn't there be, Mr. Edwards, a long-term and a short-term plan? A short-term plan first, so that we can at least kind of cushion the impact. Because at the end of the day, the fact of the matter is that if you would listen to a local preacher on Facebook, Bishop Lawrence Road, he said, things are so bad, things are so tough, people are so frustrated, corned beef to $5, rent is so high, and so on and so forth. And if you saw that on Facebook, the thing is that we have to have a plan. If we fail at our plan, at least have one. It cannot be whatever buck up goes.
I don't think so, right? Sometimes government moves in a lumbering way, and you get the impression that anything buck up goes, right? But remember, we just coming off of the pandemic,
Right.
and there was a structured plan in place to support social payments, right?
Right.
That we had a change in government,
Yes,
and that was curtailed, right?
yes.
So it's a matter of making a decision of the extent to which that needs to be reinstated and how much it will be reinstated. But to your larger point, I think there need to be a demonstration of responsiveness, and there are persons out there who are hurting. Persons are hurting significantly, and so they look to the government to very quickly kind of pivot and say, this is what we are going to put in place, and you're going to be okay at the end of the day. And we believe, I would want to believe that this government, just like the previous administration, if this crisis moves out longer and get deeper, is going to be responsive to that. But it is Ricardo, I think, I just want to be balanced here, right? Sometimes when we see the government move slowly on certain matters, we criticize them, and sometimes rightly so. I think we often do not give credit for the tensions in these decisions. Yeah? What do I mean by that? At this point in time, for example, we hear that we are ahead of revenue. Yeah? Revenue is $210 million beyond where it was. But this revenue situation is kind of benefiting from the inflation. So the government is taking in more revenue. The government is also going into a budget cycle, and I believe want to terminate this fiscal year in the best possible position, and may very well be kind of holding the rein on certain expenditure, because the bigger picture is that the Bahamas right now isn't as favorable as we would like it to be on the debt market, on the bonds market. And we, so far, under this administration, they have not yet gotten to the point where they're able to change that narrative. And I believe that some of the things which are being done is to get the finances in the best possible position to change that argument going into the next budget cycle. Now, having said that, we must understand and appreciate that that cannot be done at the detriment of the Bahamian people. And so it is that balance which I think commentators like you and I sometimes often leave out and just say they should do it. But we need to focus on the bigger picture. And this is one of the reasons why we're saying I would recommend keeping the VAT circumstance as it currently is, because when this inflationary period is over, what you're going to find is that the country as a whole is going to benefit from the arrangement in place. As long as you put things in place now to address the vulnerable population, then things might be just a little bit better. It's easier to look at it now.
Right about here, we're going to set for another break. and we'll have our final segment when we get back. But I want you to know that the numbers to call is 326-0271 or 326-0272. When we get back, there are two issues that we want to talk about if we have the time. One, more taxes. Two, the IMF is knocking on the door or on the doors of the Bahamas. We're going to be back. We will be back. We ain't got enough time, eh?
Lowest prices in town. No one beats Mile Buckle Mart prices. Completely specials featuring
Talk too much.
Huh?
Your fresh
Maybe I talk too much.
No, man, you.
fresh fruits and vegetables, dry goods, detergents, toiletries, and much more. Come on in and encounter a real Bahamian shopping experience. We're on Lure Road North. Mondays and Thursdays, 7:30 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. Friday and Saturday, 7:30 a.m. to 8 p.m. And Sunday, 7:30 a.m. to 2 p.m. We accept social services cards and we ship to the family islands. Give us a call at 323-5422.
We are your auto superstore for rims, Exani, Azaras, Trueform, Weston, Lux, Fuel, Blacklight, Top, Rockperson, Velocity, Mud, All-Terrain, and low-profile bike, cars, homes, and commercial window tinting. At Sunshine Auto, we put God first and customer is king.
And we're back live here on Global 99.5 FM. And this is The Resistance. And the numbers to call again 326-0271 or 326-0272. Just before we went to the break, there were two matters I put before, and the one is something that we're going to have to sit and talk about. We may need a whole show for that, but certainly taxes. What do we do?
Well, I think the Honorable Prime Minister has kind of let the cat out of the bag in a way, right? When he made the statement that the government needs to have revenue to GDP at 25%, compared to this kind of 16 to 19% that we currently have. It says very clearly that the administration recognized that the level of income to affect policy or to affect the business of the government is not where it's supposed to be. So the question now becomes, how do you get there?
Yes.
And some of the things which have been done is around property tax, some reforms as it relates to value-added tax, and of course, always in the back of our minds, we are thinking, how much can we flirt with this idea of income tax or corporation tax? And I think that today the government is going through some studies, as I understand it, and we should know in a short while exactly what that is going to look like. Bottom line, Ricardo, at the end of the day, as a country, I know that the general culture of the Bahamas is we don't want to pay more taxes.
Right.
The general culture of the Bahamas is we need to be as tax-free as possible.
Right.
But there was a news item which came out last week, which spoke about $1 billion being outstanding in taxes, right? And that's a big number, no matter how you slice it, because $1 billion is 10% of our current debt. Could make a significant dent. My focus on that, though, was some of the other underlying issues which were reported. One, persons are underreporting. Two, persons are not reporting. So effectively, there is evasion taking place. Why this is important is, in any taxation system, the moment persons generally start to perceive it as being inequitable and unfair, they start to game the system. So if I believe that Ricardo makes $10 and I make $10, and Ricardo somehow is finding ways to not pay any taxes, but still competing against me, I may want to figure out a way of how I normalize that and balance that. And so the government job right now is to start to ask some hard question. If we need 25%, and we are discovering that some people are gaming the system, is it possible that the current system that we have might be sufficient, or at least better than we thought it was, and therefore we need to put a lot of attention on enforcement, not just enforcement in saying, hey, this is how much you're supposed to pay and we're going to run it down and pay, right? It's saying, if you don't pay, your property will be gone. If you don't pay, your wages will be garnished. If you don't pay, you will lose your house, and we're going to sell it, and we're going to put that into the kitty. So you have to now start to think about how you mature your tax regime at such a level to ensure that the country consistently have the revenue it needs to do what it needs to do.
Well, I tell you, definitely the government should be taking some of your advice.
These are all known things. Usually I see things, I read them, and I just put them in my own words.
Yes.
But the fact of the matter is, Ricardo, just to say this very quickly, I believe that the one thing that we must not do is pretend that we do not understand what the issues are.
Mm-hmm.
As a country, especially going through COVID, we now know what our problems are.
Mm-hmm.
We have to go and fix them. We can no longer pretend.
Well, I would say this much. I think that much of what is needed by the government is discipline.
Yes.
A failure to be disciplined will lead to some things. Now, some people do not like the idea of the IMF. Some people will tell you, as the Minister Michael Alcides said, over his dead body will the IMF be allowed in here. There will be no deals with the IMF. But do we have it? Do we have the discipline? Some people will talk about the current numbers of the civil servants, and they'll tell you that the number needs to be downsized.
Right.
But does any government over the last several years have the courage to touch those numbers? They've been growing and growing and growing. Does the government have the right to, does the government have the discipline to say to these ministries that continue to write these big budgets for cars and all this bunch of stuff? Does it have the courage to say, well, if you don't use what is there, then walk? Does the government have the courage to make the cuts that we need? Because the expenditure, on the expenditure side, we're going crazy.
Yeah, you talk about the IMF, and let me put it this way: the Bahamas is far, far away from having any sort of an interaction from a structural reform with the IMF.
You think so?
I think it's far enough. And the reason it is far is because I believe in between where we are now and that decision is a huge buffer, in that the government has the capacity to tax the country more. And that's just a reality. It's not said a lot because it's not a very palatable thing for politicians to say. It's not a very palatable thing for Bahamians generally to get engaged in, but it is the reality. The point you make, I think, is fundamental. It's about discipline. And the question is, can we, knowing the issues, discipline ourselves enough to get to that place? Now bear in mind, Ricardo, you did something which most people do. They say cut. It's not just about cutting. It may actually not be about cutting. It's about making better decisions, better investment, better accountability. So, you know, you have to buy a bottle of water and somebody buy the wrong one. And then you turn around and have to buy another bottle and another bottle. And so the quality of the decision, you know, persons talk about corruption and people thieving, right? You know, we can prove that people thief any money. But we can prove that there are a stream of bad decisions
Yes.
over the years under many administrations, and that's where the focus needs to be. So the difference between us doing it by ourselves and us doing it with an IMF would be that important word, discipline, because we would be forced into a program to do certain things, to measure and manage them. And if we can do that ourselves, and I think the Bahamas has the capacity to do so, then we are going to be that much better. So I believe now that we know the issues, step out and do them, bring the discipline, bring the political will, bring the national pride to this whole process, and let's get it done.
Mr. Edwards, I think that you are right. We should be able to. We shouldn't need external forces
We can do it.
to direct us and to muscle us and to have us do what we know
Should be done.
should be done. And I'm not advocating cutting anything. But the reality is that these are some things that we have to sit and talk about and make the decisions as to what is the right way to go.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, I can tell you that when one sits and talk about going out there and the lion's share of the money that you borrow is to service debt and to further go on with expenses that you really can't afford.
Yeah.
Someone has to be sitting in that room who is going to say, we can't go on much longer in this way. We have to talk about really cutting the debt and bringing the deficit, trying to bring that deficit down so that at least we would be able to supply enough money in the economy to cover the physical the fiscal expenses of the government.
Yes.
We can't continue to borrow and borrow and borrow just to pay for the services that we need.
That's correct.
The time has come for some people to pull their pants up or pull their socks up. And these are the big boys on the block. They have to do the big things. It takes some courage, and yes, this administration would have said that they have the answers that we would like to see what they will do. But I want to say a special thank you to you, Mr. Edwards, and give you a couple of seconds to go ahead and say some closing remarks.
Well, thank you certainly for having me. My final word would be kind of where you were heading to. We have to get to the point where we recognize that our current circumstances are not sustainable. We have to fix those. We have to fix those with a view of achieving economic resiliency going forward. We have to fix those on the basis of the structural challenges that we know exist within the country, and we have to get to the place where greater discipline, fiscal discipline, greater accountability and responsibility is demonstrated right across the system. Final word is this: it's not the government's job alone to fix the country. It's the government and every single citizen has an obligation to work in that direction. And that's where I want to leave it.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen, the words of wisdom from the man of wisdom. We want to tell you today that the show was brought to you by King Cone Cigar Lounge, Milo Butler on Blue Hill Road. Make sure I give them a call over at 677-6397. Seashells Cafe 356-3437. Tropical Gyros 601-5752. Sunshine Auto Sales Abundant Life Road, off Soldier Road, Southerners Lounge on Blue Hill Road, 6980805. Glory Basketball Jam, the People's Penny Saving Bank Barbershop, 3B's Wholesale and Retail Bar, 5th Street on the Grove and Ponciana Drive, General Landscaping and Trucking, 825-5389, Zulu Media Marketing, and make sure and catch us on Wednesday. We'll be back here Wednesday, live, here on Global 99.5 FM.